Hi, this is Ben Black, the founder of Akkadian Ventures and of the Raise Conference, and I am here with Shelley Zhuang of 112 Capital. Hi, Shelley. How are you?
Good. Hi, Ben. How's it going?
Awesome. Well, Shelley, I've been following for a long time, and as one of the most impressive portfolios that I've seen come through Raise Conference since the very beginning. Shelley, do you want to just start by giving a little bit of the background and your history of how you started the firm?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a computer scientist by training. I did my PhD at UC Berkeley. Then I became a VC because I didn't want to become a professor. So I started out as an analyst at DFJ, really learned a lot there, was there for about 6 years, and then started 112 Capital in 2014 to focus on emerging and deep technology startups and founders.
That's great. And so you started in 2014, and I'm curious. I look back at your background a little while. It looked like you were at DFJ, then you went to a portfolio company for a little while. And then what made you decide, what was the initial push that said, I'm not going to go join another fund. I'm going to start this thing on my own.
Yeah, I think back then there were very few seed funds focused on the deep technology niche. And I think even today there are very few funds exclusively focused on this niche. And so I wanted to start a fund to focus on that type of entrepreneurs, really companies that have core IP and technology behind them. And so that's what we set out to do. And it's been really a great journey, really partnering with a lot of very technical founders and, be a small part of their journey and making their technology turn into product and then commercialize them. So it's been a lot of fun, actually. Yeah.
So you started 2014, and when you started, did you start with investors, or how did you find your original group? You had if I remember correctly, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so correct me if I'm wrong. You did a $49 million first fund. And that it took you, call it a year and a half to get that closed. I remember went into to 2015.
Yeah.
And so talk to us about how did that first year go for you? Where did you find your investors? How did you get to your first close? Give us the story.
Yeah, I think I was a complete newbie when it comes to fundraising for Fund One. So I only really approached individuals to get started. And those were individuals, mostly ex-entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs I've met through DFJ. So those could be, entrepreneurs of companies that we looked at when I was at DFJ. And then they introduced some of their friends. So actually for Fund One, it was mostly high net worth individuals who were entrepreneurs themselves, who wanted to, stay current with the latest happenings in the tech world. So that's really how we got the first fund up and running.
And what was your first close in the first fund?
It was 13 million.
13 million.
Fairly small. Yeah.
And so then how long did it take you to raise the fund before you finally
18
closed?
months.
Yeah.
So we did 5 different closings over 18 months. And then, each closing didn't actually take that much time because when you pitch to individuals, they tend to make decisions fairly quickly. So I probably spent, a few weeks on each close. So it wasn't actually too bad.
So this is interesting. So when you went and did your first fund, all individuals, how many investors did you have in your first fund?
I think close to 40 LPs.
That's pretty good. What have you learned about fundraising that you thought was harder? What's been easier? How's it all gone for you? Because and I am interested in this because you really do have an amazing portfolio. So
yeah, I think it hasn't been easy, right? I'm not gonna say it's been easy because I think it's hard for most GPs, right, to raise funds from especially institutional LPs. They tend to want to see more development in your portfolio, more just team development as well. They just want to see more, right, compared to an individual investor. I definitely have learned a lot, right? Like I've encountered, different types of LPs, not just individuals, but expanded that to family offices, endowment foundations, and so on, RIAs, right? So actually know the differences between all these different types of LPs now. So definitely learned a lot in terms of, and really just kind of honed in on our pitch as well. What's really differentiating about our fund? What is our mission? How do we tell the story? I think all of that takes time, right, to learn how to do. So fundraising definitely is a skill set that I've learned over time.
All right. So what have you learned about yourself during this process of going to have raised money? There are investors I know who love raising money. Like I actually really enjoy it. It's something that I'm like, maybe it's a rare person. I enjoy raising money, but it is I know a very soul sucking and frustrating experience. If you had to go back and you could tell yourself, in 2014, something that you've learned that you would do differently, if starting a fund today, what would you say that the most important things that you've learned? Just give me a few.
Yeah, I think it's putting together the story. And I have to say the most recent RAISE conference actually helped with that, right? And, really putting together that pithy short version of your story. I had to condense our slides, right, and presentation down to 5 minutes. And that was actually really helpful. Yeah, it's a
good skill, right? We learned that 10 minutes is too long for anyone to talk about their fund on a stage. 5 minutes is just right. Okay, so get your story done. So what else have you learned? Do you go back and tell yourself to do something different?
Yeah, so I think getting the story right, kind of really distilling your fund into a couple of key points. What's differentiated about your fund? Just like how we look at startups, essentially, right? I think also finding the right investors, because there are a lot of different reasons for saying no to your fund. And so you just have to, and in a way, it is a numbers game, right? So you do have to fill the top of the funnel. But I think over time, we have identified sort of the ideal target persona, what types of LPs are best suited for us at this stage in our firm's development. So I think that does take a little bit of time to figure out.
So obviously working with high net worth individuals is very different from working with institutions. How did you, what did you have to do to institutionalize your fund to make it ready and to cross that chasm from high net worth individuals to the institutional investor?
Yeah, I think part of it is preparing the fundraising materials, right? So for Fund 1, I just had a deck and myself, and I learned, some of our GP friends were very helpful in getting us started, like what are needed, right, for pitching to institutional LPs. And also along the way, feedback from LPs, what they would want to see. For example, I remember I met one LP, I think it was actually through RAISE. He gave really good feedback that your LP reports need to be revamped, right, and upgraded, and which we did. I think that's also, just part of that whole making it more professional and make sense to the institutional LPs. I think definitely that was a part of it.
So, one question that I think always comes up is how everyone has a certain sort of personal Rolodex that they can go to, but that's never deep enough. You know what I mean? You always have to go and find new relationships. Talk a little bit about how you go about how you went about leveraging that initial GP base that you built into sort of getting into a bigger pool of investors that you didn't personally know. And were you very focused during your Fund 1 on getting to know institutional investors early, or was this something where you went through, did great, and then kind of had to go take your story out and go talk to new institutional investors out of the blue?
Yeah. So actually, that's a really good point. That is one lesson I wish I had known earlier, that I should have started those conversations while I was investing out of Fund 1. So unfortunately, I didn't do that. And in terms of how to find, right, like getting introductions, yeah, I mean, a lot of it in the beginning was introductions through GPs we have co-invested with or who, we know each other well. So that's been just really wonderful to get that. And then eventually, I think we also got some introductions through other LPs, even ones that did not invest, right? But they like the story, and for whatever reason, it might be they already have a full pipeline of managers. They actually started introducing us to other, or mentioning us to other LPs. And then, conferences like RACE is also helpful as well. And sometimes you get even entrepreneurs that we meet. It's odd. I mean, they're not institutional, but we were actually talking to them about their companies, and then they ended up becoming interested in our fund. But that's kind of one off. Yeah.
So talk to me about, obviously, great track record. Talk to me about the rest of the team. Like, is it just you doing all the fundraising, or do you have a partner that's helping you on the fundraising side? And or I'm not really sure. Is it do you have to do it all, or have you been able to get some help on the fundraising side?
Yeah, no, I definitely get some help from my colleague Jake. So he's actually super helpful in helping us prepare the materials for the data room that we're, as a GP, you probably know you have to constantly update, right, at every quarter or at every event. So he's definitely been very, very helpful on that front. But I do take most of the first meetings. I think maybe eventually when we get larger in size, we can have a IR person who's dedicated. I mean, I think that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I mean, the IR person, I would like an IR person too, for that matter. But
yeah,
I kind of wonder, like, I have never been able to outsource fundraising to anybody else. Like, at the end of the day, you really have to. I have been pitching some investors for 7 or 8 years before they finally, sort of come down to actually write a check, which is, I think that's one thing about this business. It's I always say we have your, sort of your farm team, like you're always like out there just touching people and keeping the conversations alive. Do you have a formal process for this, or are you just sort of like do it when you can?
Like how to track LPs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we use a tracking, like a CRM software to track LPs, just like we track deals. And then I haven't actually, I think this is something I need to be better at, is to have a more consistent ongoing communication with LPs who passed, right? And I think unlike deals where we generally don't invest again after we pass, I think LPs actually do invest after they pass the first time around. So we actually recently sent out a newsletter just to kind of recap everything that's happened last year. And we did actually get a few replies from LPs who are interested in getting updates. So I do think going forward, we should do a better job at kind of keeping them posted, right, on the ones who are interested in our story, but just wanted to see more traction, more time with the team.
What do you think about the importance of team? I mean, because you started out kind of as a solo GP, but you have a partner, but there's no doubt that it's your firm. Do you think that this is kind of that the team aspect is as important as the track record aspect?
So I do think it's important for some LPs, and I remember certain LPs actually will not back single GPs, right? So we do have a team now, and I think it really depends on LPs. So I think that's one of the, kind of going back to what I said earlier, finding LPs, right, who are okay with your scene, your thesis, your team is kind of part of the key things to figure out, because I think certain LPs, they're just used to, they don't want the single key person risk, right? And it is what it is. But there are other LPs who are very open to doing single GPs. So you just have to find the right fit. Yeah.
I really appreciate your story, Shelley, and you should be very proud of what you've created. It's super impressive.
Thank you, Ben.